Welcome to our viewers in Alberta and Saskatchewan and right across the country as we look at what's happening with COVID-19 here on the prairies. To help us walk through the events of today, I'm joined by Rob Brown, the host of CBC Calgary News at 6, and Nancy Carlson, the host of CBC Edmonton News at 6. First, let's get into the latest numbers across Alberta and Saskatchewan right now. In Alberta, there are now 301 cases. That's up by 42 and includes 11 healthcare workers who attended that curling bonspiel in Edmonton earlier this month. And in Saskatchewan, it's been 12 days since the first case. There are now 66 cases of COVID-19, 14 more since yesterday. Coming up, Alberta's Chief Medical Health Officer says testing will now focus on priority patients. Also, we'll show you how Edmonton's Chinese community is breaking language barriers to help keep people safe. And from Calgary, we'll have more on the comments from an increasingly frustrated Alberta Premier. Jason Kenney's government facing both a public health and economic crisis right now. And in Calgary is where we start. Rob, some sharp words from Jason Kenney today, who delivered a multi-pronged message.
To several groups, Sam: business owners, hoarders, scammers, and snowbirds. Kenney concerned about those folks returning to Alberta and not taking the 14-day required social isolation period seriously, talking about issuing quarantine orders at the border now, which could carry big fines. His tone growing even sharper when warning Albertans about online COVID scams targeting seniors and talking about volunteering at a soup kitchen this morning. He says demand there has spiked in recent days, but staff are having difficulty getting supplies because people are hoarding.
So let me just say to those who are trying to exploit seniors and others during this time of a public health emergency, there must be a special place in hell for people like that. Just stop it. And it is completely un-Canadian. It is un-Albertan. It is unacceptable. It is illegal. And if we catch anybody who's engaged in these kinds of frauds or scams, I guarantee you the book will be thrown at them and they will face the full force of the law.
His message for business owners: the government is doing everything it can to help keep them liquid, announcing property tax and workers' comp relief to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars today. As for the province's biggest employer, the energy sector, Kenney says he's hoping for a federal backstop in excess of more than $10 billion, along with some help from Ottawa for Calgary's WestJet, Sam.
And Rob, Calgary's mayor also held a news conference today to focus on a couple of key demographics.
Yeah, kids and the homeless. There's a lot of concern about the living conditions in city shelters right now, like the Calgary Drop-In Centre downtown, for instance, where occupants are often housed shoulder to shoulder. Nahid Nenchi says staff are now working on erecting barriers in sleeping areas. And starting today, some homeless are being moved out of shelters into empty hotel space. As for the cooped up kids, no doubt after a week of being at home from school, those children need to get outside to get all that energy out, but some public areas are now off limits.
As of now, playgrounds and play structures are closed. Whether they have signage on them or not, they are closed. Do not use playgrounds or play structures if you're out and about. It's just too hard to control. Those of you who are parents know kids touch everything, they put everything in their mouth, and they touch their face. It is much too hard to control.
So I'm guessing the great outdoors is going to be a playground substitute for a lot of parents going forward.
Yeah, it already is, Sam. Calgarians love the great outdoors, and there's no shortage of spectacular green space here, of course. The parks in Kananaskis country, west of Calgary, packed this weekend. Too packed, in fact, for health officials given social distancing directives, and especially when you consider this, that because of COVID protocols, public washrooms are locked. As a result, Alberta Parks noticed that people were leaving some pretty disgusting stuff in those parks. So they tweeted a reminder to all visitors today, Sam: whatever you take into the park, take it back out.
Thanks, Rob. Rob Brown is the host of CBC Calgary News at 6. In Alberta, 11 of the 301 confirmed cases of COVID-19 are linked to a recent curling event in Edmonton. For details on that, we go to the CBC's Nancy Carlson. Nancy, this is the same bonspiel where the head of the Saskatchewan Medical Association believes he caught the virus.
Yeah, and so we now know that 11 Saskatchewan healthcare workers and 11 Alberta healthcare workers have tested positive, and they were all at that event. So it took place from March 11th to 14th at the Granite Curling Club. They are reaching out to anyone who may have been impacted. That's Alberta Health is reaching out. 47 Alberta healthcare workers were there, and again, 11 have tested positive for COVID-19 so far. The Chief Medical Officer of Health says in the days following the bonspiel, some of those people, many are doctors, were in contact with patients.
None of those individuals are at work right now, and so that I haven't heard that that's been a significant impediment to the delivery of care at any of those particular locations. Those are individuals across the province. But certainly I think our healthcare system needs all of the people that we have.
Now, the province is working to limit contact between doctors and patients, and one of those measures is through a TELUS Health app called Babylon. It lets Albertans meet with licensed physicians in one-on-one video consultations through their smartphone. It's pretty easy. Well, the opposition NDP and doctors are raising concerns about the security of patients' private health information. The app's privacy terms allow sessions to be recorded, and the video could be shared with corporate partners and stored on servers outside of Canada. Well, Alberta's Privacy Commissioner has yet to conduct a privacy review of the app, but today the Premier reiterated the importance of having this service available during this pandemic.
Nancy, what about people who were wondering about self-isolating and waiting to be tested?
Yeah, so Alberta Health has changed its testing protocols, so only people who are at the highest risk of exposure will be tested. So, for example, anyone returning from travel and who doesn't have any symptoms just has to isolate for 14 days. Now, if you do feel that there is a lot of information coming at you, you are not alone. And some communities are trying to make it easier, and that includes Edmonton's Chinese community. They spoke with Armin Dhariwal about the videos they are making available to bridge the language gap.
Dr. Bing Li gives instructions in Cantonese on a Facebook video uploaded to the Edmonton Chinatown Care Center's Facebook page. The longtime Edmonton doctor teamed up with the Chinese senior home to explain to seniors what they need to do during the pandemic and why.
I feel that it's my duty as a physician at this time. I think we all need to work together to control this situation.
Between the Edmonton Chinatown Care Center and the Chinese Seniors Lodge, there are 180 seniors living there. Visitation has been scaled back to protect them during the pandemic. 89-year-old Casey Yu and his 86-year-old wife Mary heard Dr. Li's message loud and clear.
Being a doctor, I think his instructions carry more weight to people, you know.
The amount of news regarding COVID-19 has been at times overwhelming. Trying to figure out what's important can be a challenge, especially if you don't understand what's being said. The Yus, who understand English well, say despite that, hearing the message in Cantonese is reassuring.
We are not panicking, and we feel comfortable because we have the good people like Dr. Li and the AHS look after us.
And the plan is to keep Chinese seniors in the loop with more videos if need be. Min Dhariwal, CBC News, Edmonton.
Now, there is a lot of information out there. If you have any questions about what is closed in Edmonton and so many other answers, if you're looking for those, we do have a great interactive map to help you out on our website. Sam?
Thanks, Nancy. Nancy Carlson is the host of CBC Edmonton News at 6. Athletes in Calgary are coming to terms with the announcement that Canada's Olympic team will not participate in the Tokyo Games if they go ahead this summer. The Canadian Olympic Committee made its decision public last night, and while athletes say it's the right thing to do, it doesn't make the news any easier. Among them are wrestlers Erica Wiebe and Danielle Lepage. They both earned spots on Canada's Olympic team at a tournament last month in Ottawa. Even then, the future of the Games was uncertain, but now that the decision is final, the disappointment is very real.
When I saw the news, I was heartbroken. I wanted to go to Tokyo, and I won a gold medal in Rio, and I wanted to try and do that again. And it was really tough to read that news and to let it sink in. But, you know, I'm so proud to be Canadian, and I think it was the right decision.
Sport is important, but the health of our people is the most important thing in this world. And so I hope they do realize that, consider that, and they decide to postpone the games.
An infectious disease research facility at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon is getting $23 million from Ottawa. About half the money is going toward a pilot-scale plant to speed vaccine development at the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, also known as VIDO. It will be equipped for human vaccine production. VIDO will also use the cash to run its high containment labs this year. It's one of only a few labs in Canada cleared to work on fighting the COVID-19 virus. Some clarification after some confusion in Saskatchewan's capital city. Last week, the city of Regina made a proclamation with a local state of emergency with terms that were more specific and restrictive than the province's state of emergency. Today, the provincial government rescinded Regina's order. Regina's Mayor Michael Fougere says he's disappointed by the news. He's hopeful that the province will enact more serious measures to help flatten the curve and help keep people at home to minimize the spread of COVID-19.
Happening around the country, Nova Scotia, for one example, province-wide, has meeting no more than 5 people at any one time. Other cities around the country are moving to a lesser number. We note that the chief medical officer some days ago said he personally would want to see no more than 5 people meet at once, and that is a cue that we took to put our proclamation in place.
Speaking to the media this afternoon, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe says he has been and continues to be in touch with other premiers. He's hoping to align restrictions among all provinces and the federal government. Moe says he believes some consistency would eliminate confusion, and that when we get to a point that restrictions can be lifted, that the same consistency will also apply. People are stocking up on supplies as they prepare to stay in isolation for extended periods of time. Toilet paper is not the only thing flying off the shelf. There's also been an increased demand for firearm ammunition and weed. Gun stores in Calgary are seeing an uptick in traffic. They say customers are stocking up on hunting ammunition, and they're also seeing a lot of shotgun sales. One store owner told the CBC people don't want to miss out on hunting season. Cannabis stores are also seeing a similar surge in customers who don't want to be caught empty-handed if stores have to close. But store owners say even though sales are up, supply is still good. Some Regina business people are stepping up to help feed kids that are now without school lunch programs. Cam Bahia is the founder of a youth empowerment group, and she's partnered with a Regina restaurant to help provide healthy meals for kids. They're making hot lunches and delivering them curbside across the city.
I think that now more than ever is a time to really focus on our children and youth's mental and emotional well-being, and with that comes having a nutritional meal. And I think there's a lot of parents out there that are also worried about how they're going to feed their kids, so we'll sustain this as long as we possibly can.
Bahia and the owners of the Lobby restaurant say next week they will transition from hot lunch to cold lunch delivery. That'll include a sandwich, veggies, and a juice box. And something positive before we leave you tonight from the prairies. With so much self-isolation, a lot more of us have been out for walks in our neighborhoods, and our neighborhoods are giving us something sweet to look at. These sidewalk chalk messages are meant to spread a little positivity, and people are hanging and painting hearts in their windows as well. It's part of a movement on social media called Hearts for Healthcare Workers, meant to show appreciation for those working on the front line of COVID-19. I've been noticing more of those hearts and chalk drawings on my evening walks. Certainly puts a smile on my face. Carol?